Hey guys, so the UN recently signed the Global Goals policy for eliminating poverty, inequality and such in the next 15 years. And with that one sentence, he lost half of this video's viewers. Serious though, the last time the UN did this, they really did change the world, and now it's time to do it again. And I'm excited for it. I want to show my support. So if you're wondering why I have these numbers on my face, go to this website, link in the description, and check it out because this stuff is important. And yes, I am reading off a script because I have a lot to say in this video and not a lot of time to record it. So yeah. I want to talk about one particular part of the third goal, the one relating to health. One that has a bit of personal significance to me. Vaccines. If you follow me on Tumblr or are friends with me on Facebook, then you might have an idea of where I'm going with this. If not, then I'll say it right now. Vaccines do not cause autism. Wait, don't go. Okay, gonna make this clear. I could go on about the implications of saying that you should avoid vaccines for preventable diseases because it could give a kid autism, which I find a bit upsetting. But I'm not going to because another teenager sitting in front of a camera yelling about how society is mean to them really isn't going to achieve anything. Instead, I want to look at why people believe that vaccines do cause autism because there is a story there which I'm willing to bet that almost nobody knows and everybody who talks about this should know. The truth is, there is one scientific study which has linked vaccines with an increased occurrence of autism. Except it wasn't vaccines, it was one particular vaccine. It wasn't a brain study, it was conducted by a guy whose primary work had been with the bowel system, so he was used to talking crap. But more on that later. It wasn't autism that he linked it to, he came up with a new condition to explain it, which turned out to be fictional, and there was no strong link because only 12 kids were studied, which is not a statistically significant number. Seriously, the paper that was published had more authors than it did subjects, at least until the authors backed out. Okay, first part is the vaccine. In the late 1980s, there was a series of triple vaccines in Britain targeting measles, mumps and rubella altogether, called the MMR vaccines. This is why we need to stop letting bureaucrats name things, but that's beside the point. There was some argument over whether or not the original vaccine was safe enough, with some side effects including mild viral meningitis and potentially inflammatory bowel syndrome, the latter of which was the work of a man named Andrew Wakefield. Around 1996, the MMR vaccination rate began to fall. There was a lawsuit claiming that the product was defective, and the lawyers running this case came across the studies of Mr. Wakefield. Here's where it gets interesting. Wakefield was paid over $500,000 to prove that second-generation MMR was dangerous, and it wasn't. He published his findings in a science journal in 1998 alongside 12 other authors. This is not good science, it's a huge conflict of interest, and nobody was told about it. The journal went on record saying that if they'd known about the money at the time, the paper would never have been published. Now, I know this sounds like a conspiracy theory. I do have the links to back this up, and it's all quite well documented and very much public knowledge, so go check it out. As for the study itself, it was conducted on 12 kids who apparently had autism. 8 of them either had a physician or a parent say that the symptoms of their condition appeared after vaccination. Again, this is a very small scale with no real comparison. It didn't look at kids who'd received the vaccine without a problem, and it didn't look at kids who hadn't received the vaccine. That's not enough context for the findings that they did make to say it even suggests a link, because there were millions of people receiving these vaccines. The findings also weren't what most people think they were. Like I said earlier, Andrew Wakefield wasn't a psychologist, he wasn't a neuroscientist, he specialized in studying the digestive system. What he actually studied was the guts of the 12 autistic kids and encountered evidence that there could be a link between autism and intestinal problems, a new syndrome he called autistic enterocolitis. The paper said that there was a real link between autism and intestinal problems, but it never provided a solid link to the MMR. For the record, according to reports, Wakefield estimated that this new condition could make him as much as $43 million per year, and he had 2 patents in place to produce a replacement vaccine for the MMR if they succeeded in damaging its reputation enough. However, nobody else has been able to prove the existence of this condition, and it is now considered completely fake by the scientific community. Now, for the next few years, there was a bit of back and forth over whether or not the MMR vaccine was safe, but by 2004, over 80% of British doctors were happy to recommend the MMR to somebody with a close family history of autism. Several of the paper's co-authors reported during this time that the study did not prove the triple vaccine was unsafe, and some of them even came out in support of it. Important. Multiple co-authors did not believe that there was a link between MMR and autism. Around this time, a journalist by the name of Brian Deere found out about the payment Wakefield had received. At this point, 10 out of the 12 co-authors immediately withdrew from the study's conclusion that there could be a link between environmental conditions and the stomach problems the previously normal kids had had. In 2010, the paper was fully retracted with the statement that the findings were illegitimate. Since the original study, nobody has replicated Wakefield's results. To wrap it out, throughout the mid-2000s, there were repeated accusations against Wakefield for fraud and fixing the results to make a link to autism. Even claims that he covered up evidence from his own lab that went against this conclusion. An official investigation by the General Medical Council, which is the group that licenses doctors in the UK, found that these accusations were true. Andrew Wakefield was stripped of his medical license and is no longer permitted to practice medicine in the UK due to fraud and unethical behaviour. So that's the story. One guy nearly 20 years ago was paid a crap load of money to say that one particular vaccine was dangerous, and he is no longer allowed to be a doctor. And that's what started it. They never said that all vaccines were dangerous, and the people involved in the original study and the publication no longer back it up. Now, I don't know if this is going to change anybody's minds about vaccines, but now you guys can tell people how this got started. And maybe we can help to undo some of the damage that this has caused. And please go check out globalgoals.org, because it really is possible for the world to get better within our lifetimes. But only if we listen. See you guys soon. Bye.